What is up, everybody? Welcome into yet another sad Sactown Sports Kings recap. My name is Chris Watkins. Nice to be joining you again. Unfortunately, it's somehow worse than it was Saturday night, where I really thought this team had hit rock bottom. But yeah, then whatever just happened, and I would definitely say that this team has reached a brand new rock bottom after losing to the Houston Rockets on Saturday in what I would I thought was pretty universal, that was the worst game of the Mike Brown era, of the Beam Team era, if you will. They followed up with the with the game that was somehow worse than Saturday, and all I can do is laugh. It's just very fitting, as a Sacramento Kings fan, as someone who's watched this team for I don't know, the better part of my life. It's just, it would have been nice if the Kings could have continued the success of last year, and then had no issues running through this year. But of course, that's not how anything works. That's not how life works. And I think this is a nice, humbling reminder that life just never goes as you plan. And I don't think anybody saw this happening for the Sacramento Kings. Definitely not me. Maybe this is I'm trying to cope right now, but man, this is this start to the season. I don't think anybody started or anybody saw this coming. And 2-4 is not terrible record. It's definitely not where you'd want to be, but it's not. This is not an insurmountable mountain to climb, but it really feels like the Kings have nothing going for them. This is the worst offensive performance I've ever seen from this team. I shouldn't say ever, but it's definitely up there in one of the all-time classic stinkers. I saw Kings Muse, shout out Kings Muse on Twitter, tweet out a scoreboard of the Kings Celtics games from I think it was 2 years ago, where Tyrese Halliburton famously was like, I want to change the narrative here in Sacramento, and the Kings got beat. I think it was 98 to 123 or something crazy like that. Tonight felt like one of those nights where where the Kings just get absolutely obliterated, and it unfortunately felt like a pre-Beam Team era night for the Kings, which is a really bad feeling, a feeling that I did not think I would feel again for a really long time. But tonight was definitely a disappointment. I think, just to remove all that emotion from it, this night is definitely disappointing. Like, the Kings should have came out tonight, fueled by Saturday's loss, and really used that as fuel to a fire that should have led them to have some sort of spark of energy tonight. And it was really the same story as it was on Saturday. I mean, Houston got to the rim whenever they wanted. The Kings really struggled with ball pressure, and Houston just got to the rim whenever they wanted, which forced the Kings to sometimes collapse the paint harder than what I think Coach Brown would want them to, thus leading to wide open shooters. And shout out also, like, first and foremost, I feel like the thing that needs to be said is shout out Ime Udoka and this Houston Rockets team, who are just playing their butts off. They definitely played their part in what the Sacramento Kings are going through right now. I know from the Kings side, no one really wants to hear that, but what the Houston Rockets just did to this Kings team over these past two games was not just the Kings suck. That's definitely part of it. The Kings were not good in this little 2-game series, but also Houston really played with an edge and physicality that was definitely not there for this team in the past. And just fighting for loose balls and continuing to play defense for 24 seconds, which is not a thing that the Kings typically do. Shout out Houston, because they definitely played their tails off. And man, they're not terrible. I'm telling you, I'm not just hyping them up. They really played a really good 2 games here, and or at least tonight, I should say. I wasn't a big fan of what they did on Saturday, but Ime Udoka definitely has them playing different, because last year they were a really heavy isolation team, and they really they really move the ball a lot, which was again a big reason why the Kings struggled to just move around and keep pace with them. But defensively is really where I was most impressed. Just how they stay big. Jabari Smith Jr. I thought did a great job defensively, but the Kings, it should not have been the difference. The Kings are a good enough team to overcome all that stuff, and that's why everybody should rightfully feel disappointed. And yeah, shout out everyone who's going to be joining tonight, because this is definitely one of those nights where it does it feels like these post game live streams should be illegal, because there should be nobody who wants to talk or hear more about this team after a performance like that. That was incredibly disappointing, and I think after Saturday, that's not anything that any Sacramento Kings fan wanted to see. I'm not saying there wasn't some positives, because I definitely do want to point out some positives. There were few, but I definitely want to point out some things that I really like. I really did like to see Kevin Huerter get his shot going today. He clearly felt confident. He knocked down, let me see how many threes he ended up knocking down. Knocked down 3 of 8 from 3, but they were high confidence. No hitch, no nothing, which I didn't think he had a hitch in the first place. But it really felt like he felt confident in his shot, and it didn't feel like he really felt this slump that he's in right now. So hopefully he's getting to another side of this slump. Hopefully we don't even have to talk about Kevin Huerter and the shooting struggles for a long time. So good to see Kevin Huerter knock down the shot. Really just, any I'm sure 3 feels like 100 for Kevin right now. So shout out him, and hopefully he can get to the other side of this, because on the other hand, Keegan Murray, another slow night for him. Just again, when De'Aaron Fox is out, you kind of would want Domantas Sabonis, who we'll get to him. But you kind of want him and Domas to step up the scoring load. Keegan only scored 12 points tonight. His shot continues to not really fall from the perimeter. He wasn't guarding point guards tonight, so there's not that excuse anymore of, he's having to guard Fred VanVleet. He had to guard Steph Curry. Tonight, he was not guarding the ball handler, so his 2 of 6, 12 points, it just wasn't going to do it. Of course, it's not just his fault, but that's definitely wasn't necessarily a massive positive. One thing I will say, I didn't like Domantas Sabonis' performance. Only 4 shots tonight in 30 minutes. Again, same thing that I just said with Keegan. When De'Aaron's not out there, Sabonis has to take more than 4 field goal attempts. That's just ridiculous. Like he's an all-star himself. He's an all-NBA guy himself. He needs to hold his weight when De'Aaron's not out there. And at the very least, we should say, Domas is pulling his weight, and he's definitely not a reason why we're not winning these ball games right now. And he had a good performance against Golden State. Last week, was that, feels like a year ago, was that last Monday in Golden State. He had a good performance, but these 2 games in Houston, he hasn't been nearly good enough for him to kind of get a pass. So definitely, need to have better performances from the guys that you kind of expect to pick up the scoring load. Keon Ellis definitely was a positive tonight. Really good to see him have that fourth quarter. I've been talking about Keon Ellis since he got here. Shout out Brendan Nunez, who's also been a really big Keon Ellis supporter. But Keon, what he brings defensively, I think is his greatest asset. And the fact that he can knock down shots is so big for his game, because that could possibly allow him to be on the floor. Like that's going to keep him on the floor, much like we've talked about with Davion Mitchell. I think Keon Ellis is really a special defender. Like I don't think he's just a good defender. I really think he can be elite on that side of the floor. And so if Mike Brown trusts his offense enough, which at this point, anybody who's making shots, come on down, because with how everyone else is shooting, there's no reason to not say that Keon can get some minutes, especially with what he brings defensively. So that'll be interesting to kind of monitor for Wednesday when they play Portland Trailblazers. Will Keon maybe get a look? I mean, we've seen Colby Jones get some really early minutes in these games so far with De'Aaron out. So clearly, Mike Brown is not afraid to throw young guys out there if he really feels like they can make an impact. So shout out Keon Ellis, and hopefully he can find himself into the rotation, because I would really think he can make an impact again, especially defensively for this team. So that would be awesome. Let's see. Malik, foul trouble tonight was really a big story, especially in that first half. Kings only got to the line, I think, 2 times in that first half. Didn't get to the line at all in the first quarter. I think the other night we had somebody comment that the Kings are playing too physical, and I talked about how it's actually good because you can ramp down the physicality. Well, I think I'm starting to see that maybe it's just as bad as being soft, because it doesn't seem like they can defend without being too handsy, with how physical and how how close Mike Brown wants his defenders to be. It kind of feels like they just keep getting blown by because I don't know if they're just not quick enough, or if what's going on, if they're thinking about too many things in their head. But it has looked really bad on the defensive end of things. And I don't know. I mean, again, I continue to say that this team's offense really lacking has impacted the defense a lot, because I think the Kings just play more spirited when they're hitting shots, and definitely teams play differently when another team's offense is going. You're just going to kind of naturally try and score more points and play with a quicker pace. And that's another thing as well. Pace. Kings are playing slow as hell right now. Oh my goodness. How many times are the Kings going to shoot the ball with 5 or less seconds left on the shot clock? It was so bad. The offense was taking way too long to develop. It didn't feel like people were moving at all. It felt like everyone off ball was stagnant. And I don't know how Mike Brown fixes that, because you would like to think that everyone knows the offense, and everyone's at this point aware of what to do and what spots to be in. This was just not the case at all last year. The offense felt like it was always early, and we're getting good shots and we're hitting them first and foremost, most importantly. And it doesn't feel like they're getting any early open looks, and they're definitely not hitting any open looks, period. So I don't know. It's on a night like tonight. I don't have answers. I really don't. And yeah, I mean, everybody plays their part in it. Again, Domantas Sabonis. I can go down the list, and I will. Domantas Sabonis, only 8 points tonight, 4 field goal attempts. That's just not enough in 30 minutes. I was going to say I did like that Sabonis. Sabonis did check back in with about 8 minutes to go in that fourth quarter. It was a little confusing because, of course, normally in that time, you'd want to rest your best players. And it's like, if Sabonis gets hurt in that moment when they're down 35, it's like, what is he even in for? But I thought it was kind of a moment where we saw earlier, I believe it was at the end of the third quarter, he was talking to Mike Brown really intensely, and it looked like they were having a really deep conversation for what I assume was about the game, and just what was going wrong. And if I had to assume, and this is a big assumption, but I would guess that Sabonis asked him to kind of be reinserted into the game and kind of not leave that game on a bad note, if that makes sense, just to kind of reestablish yourself. It's kind of like, if you're on a shooting slump, you want to go back out there and you want to hit a couple shots just so, the next game isn't your first opportunity to get out of the shooting slump. You can kind of get out of it in this game and then, go into the next game fully refreshed. So I do kind of think that there were some things that Sabonis felt like he probably wanted to do better, and wanted to go out there and put it on film and make sure that he, and the team themselves, adjusts and tries to not ever let what happened tonight happen again. Yeah, and next one up is Harrison Barnes, who 3 points. Harrison Barnes with 3 points. He's a leader on this team. He's a veteran. He needs to be somebody who in these moments steps up when this team is really down. like they were tonight. You would just like to see, again, he had 30 in that opening night, and a lot of that was because of how open he was and the looks he got. But I think that on some nights he needs to be a little bit more aggressive and try and imprint himself onto a game. But 3 points, 0 of 4 from three, 1 of 6 from the field. Really bad night from Harrison Barnes. Keegan Murray, again, we kind of talked about him earlier. Don't want to reiterate that. Davion Mitchell, 2 of 11, 1 of 5 from three, 5 points, 2 assists. Really didn't bring much on the offensive end. Defense is fine, but wasn't it wasn't enough to shine through and turn anything around. When he's only going to score 5 points in place of De'Aaron Fox, you just kind of need more. And again, can't really single out anybody on a night like tonight, but when you're replacing a guy who averages 31 points, it's going to be really hard to try and replicate any of that. But you got to try and make some sort of imprint. And everyone played their role in tonight's loss for sure. And then Kevin Huerter, I honestly don't want to say anything bad about Kevin tonight because this is probably his best game of the season. And of course, that comes in probably the Kings' worst performance. But I really do think that Kevin Huerter played his best game of the season. So I don't really have anything bad to say about Kev. Sasha Vezenkov, I would love to see more from. Not necessarily in terms of minutes. I just mean like literally, it makes sense. Like it's a big adjustment going from Europe to the NBA, but man, he's missed some open looks. He's really quick to pull the trigger, which I don't have a problem with because of how good we hear his shooting is in practice. And I'm not denying that he is that good of a shooter, but he's just not knocking him down in game right now. And his defense is, it's to say it's up and down isn't fair. It's really either like steady or it's completely unplayable. And it's going to be interesting, especially while this team is struggling, how much Mike Brown is going to feel like he wants to play Sasha, because it kind of feels like you almost have to treat Sasha like how would you typically treat a rookie, frankly. He still is a rookie, even though he's 28 years old. You can't really give him the benefit of the doubt just because he's 28 and he has this track record at this point in time. And it kind of ties into the Keon Ellis thing. I think you kind of have to go off performances with how bad things are going right now. I think truly nobody is safe from criticism, and nobody is safe from being told that what they're doing is about to change because if tonight felt like rock bottom, and after Saturday, you would not think that would be the case, but here we are. So, again, foul trouble really, really also didn't help the Kings in this situation. Malik Monk was only able to play 15 minutes, barely really played at all in the first half in general. And by the time he was checking in the third quarter, the Kings were already down 30. So, they were kind of screwed. They were kind of screwed with how poorly they played in that first half. And, they kind of dug themselves a hole that they just could never get out of. Yeah. I'm also definitely not going to do a half hour again today because I need to eat dinner still. And I will not talk about this game for a half hour. So I'm going in the chat right now. If you got anything to say about tonight's game, feel free and drop it in there. And I'll definitely be sure to talk about it. Oh, I didn't even mention Colby Jones tonight, who continues to have really good games. Really fun to see Colby kind of develop, and it'll be interesting. Again, I think everything should be performance based, and with how well Colby has played and how comfortable he's looked, I would not mind more Colby Jones minutes at all. I've really liked his offense, and he's just so steady. Like I was not expecting his ball, like his presence on ball to be so steady. He's a really good ball handler and somebody who I think really can set up the offense and initiate the offense. So really surprised at how well Colby Jones has played really early in the season too. Like again, this is game 6 and he just looks so comfortable. So, all All right, let's go into the comments here. For sure, I think a lot of people share this sentiment, AJ, the rough break. Thought tonight would be a better showing. Like, it's crazy. It's really crazy to me that the Kings just, for sure, like, of course, energy from outside influences can really only fuel you to start the game, if that makes sense. Like, if you're hyper motivated by something somebody said, by headlines, you're really only thinking that going into the game. By the time the game's flowing, middle of the second quarter, I don't think you're thinking about that bulletin board material anymore, just because you're so in it. So you just kind of would have thought the Kings would have came out with a little bit more juice and energy after how poorly they played. And then we heard endlessly today about this hour long film session that Mike Brown went through with this team over Saturday's game. Clearly, how long that film session is. They said it's much longer than normal. I'd imagine Mike Brown had a lot to say, and clearly nobody listened. So, got to be so frustrating if you're Mike Brown. Like, I don't know what you do, because again, assuming he just ripped into him on Sunday, do you do the same thing? Because clearly it didn't get the message was not received. So, is this one of those times maybe you just kind of resort to not talking at all? It's like, hey, y'all figure, you guys tell me what you see, because clearly what I say doesn't get through. So y'all tell me what you're seeing, and maybe that'll work better. Because this fool cannot. I mean, he cannot dribble the basketball and shoot it for them. And, Mike Brown's definitely not blameless in this either, but it's definitely not. That is not. There's no way that long film session was for that to happen. That was not what was drawn up after that. Oh man. Yeah, you could see this moment right here. I agree, Manny. I saw this when Sabonis checked out. I think it was in that third quarter. He looked so defeated, and I mean, you can just see it. Like, Sabonis had his hands behind his head. There was a like 2-minute period where I was watching that game, and my jaw was on the floor. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it's scary because this team just looks unrecognizable. Just completely unrecognizable from the team we saw last year. Oh man, the trade machine will definitely be kicking up for sure. Monty McNair is definitely, he's checking his phone right now. He's going through his contacts. He's like, oh yeah, what's Daryl up to? And Daryl just traded for James. That means he's familiar with all their cap situations and stuff. What are they doing? What are some other teams around the league doing? Because clearly that's another thing that's kind of scary, is this team clearly is not at this point in the season is not clicking. Like, this is not a De'Aaron Fox problem. This is not a they don't have De'Aaron and so they're struggling. It's a lot deeper than that. If De'Aaron is really the thing that patchworks this team back to being what we saw last year, then De'Aaron Fox needs MVP. And maybe he does. Maybe that's what maybe that's where this story goes. But I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. I think that this team has a lot more talent. I just think they're not fulfilling that talent. I don't know if this is guys just trying to do too much, if it's guys thinking too much. I don't know if Mike Brown has tweaked what he did last year, and that tweak is just the wrong tweak, or what's going on, but they need to figure it out, because they look completely disjointed. They look like they just met each other. And remember when everyone this offseason was complaining about the Kings doing nothing and just bringing everyone back? It sure doesn't look like it, because it sure looks like a bunch of guys who are like Josh Dobbs, of my Minnesota Vikings, who just showed up on Wednesday, and he doesn't even know his teammates. That's how the Kings are playing right now. The Kings are playing like they all just met each other. So clearly this is a problem that's a lot deeper than just De'Aaron Fox not being there. It'll be interesting to see what Mike Brown has to say. Again, I haven't heard his post game comments yet, but I'd imagine in this media session, he's probably going to be really quiet. I'd imagine he's not going to tell the media a lot because Mike Brown really doesn't operate that way. And maybe I'm wrong. And let me check before I go on this long rant about Mike Brown actually knowing when to be loud. I don't think anything's been posted yet, so I guess I'll take a risk here and do my Mike Brown thing. I don't think Mike Brown's a guy who kind of knows like when to push buttons. And last year, I remember the most upset he ever got was actually in a win or after a win. It was after the New York Knicks win on TNT. If everyone would remember that from last year, when the Knicks got an ungodly amount of offensive rebounds, and it was actually incredibly foreshadowing to what the Kings' ultimate demise would be with Kevon Looney. But after that Knicks game, Mike Brown just tore into the team. And can't remember exactly what he says, but I remember it went pretty viral. It was definitely one of Mike Brown's more energized rant. I'm gonna get this mic fixed at some point, I promise. But I say all that to say, I think Mike Brown is really going to keep it calm tonight, and I don't think you're going to hear a lot in his press conference. I think he's going to keep it chill, and I bet he's going to lay into his team when he gets behind closed doors, and and I bet it's going to be a really quiet plane ride back to Sacramento, and it's going to be a long day of practice tomorrow. I don't think uh, I don't think that those guys are going to be out there until like 2 or 3 o'clock, and normally they're done at like 12:30. So we'll see. I mean, all they can do is use today as fuel and as a learning lesson, and hopefully this is rock bottom. Because if not, then if the Kings put a couple more performances like this, kind of gets to the point where this is just who they are, and they got to climb up from it. Right now, you can still maybe claim you can hold on to hope that this is just an admiration. Ugh, let me not use big words this late at night. You can just say it's a blip. You can say, "Oh my gosh, the Kings they're shooting so poorly. Eventually, they literally cannot continue to shoot this poorly. They're gonna go to the other end, and it's just gonna balance each other out. Just like they say with shooting slumps. You shoot 20% one month, you shoot 50% the next month. Um, so who knows? Maybe that'll happen, but it's getting real. Hey, Jess, let's not say 8 o'clock is late for me again. I have not had dinner, so let's okay. Let's just wind this down and call it a night. Okay. Um, yeah. I mean, I would love to do 3 stars. I just don't feel like it's right. But I will anyway because it's my job too. So I'm gonna give 1 star. Let's give 1 star to Colby Jones, who again uh, keeps having good performances and it just keeps, he again, I mentioned earlier, checked in with like 8 minutes in the first quarter. Um, he's getting early run. And he's playing well. He's hitting shots. He's so good at finishing around the rim. I definitely think that's Colby Jones's elite skill. You know, Vivek talks all the time about players having superpowers, like defense is Davion's superpower and speed is De'Aaron's superpower. Keegan's just obviously shooting. Like Colby Jones's superpower is definitely finishing at the rim. I really think he's an elite finisher at the rim. I would not be surprised if when he's more mature, his body's bigger, and he's playing against younger guys at some point. It wouldn't surprise me if he's just a problem at when he's going downhill. So definitely love what I'm seeing from him. And if he gets more minutes, I would not be upset at it at all. 2 stars. I'm going to give 2 stars to Keon Ellis because Keon was the leading scorer today, scored all his points in the fourth quarter. And I talked about earlier just how important it is for Keon's offense to kind of be clicking so he can get minutes on this team. Because again, superpowers. I really think Keon's superpower is defense, and especially on ball defense, and just kind of getting his hands into driving lanes and things like that. Really great at deflections. Has great hair too, so got nothing bad to say about Keon, and just love to see him hitting shots. Um, let's do 3 stars Kevin Huerter, and this is maybe pandering, but I'm really glad to see Kevin Huerter make shots and look confident, because that's he's half the equation of what's going wrong with the Kings shooting right now. Him and Keegan just aren't hitting threes, and if Kevin can kind of get going, and then Keegan can kind of get going at the same time, it's again going to kind of be a really big polar shift if we can get both of those guys humming at the same time. This Kings offense will be clicking. If they can get De'Aaron back, hopefully by Friday, definitely no rush on that, but it just feels like the more and more bad games that this team stacks up without him. This is now 3 straight losses without De'Aaron. It's just a fact of the matter. We saw it happen last year. Guys come back quicker from injury by any means necessary because they understand that you can't drop games in the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see how much longer De'Aaron's out for. He has tomorrow. Well, he has the rest of tonight. He has tomorrow. And then the Kings play again on Wednesday. And then again on Friday for the in-season tournament. So we'll see. I would assume he'd be back by Friday, but again, no guarantees, and don't really want to put a timeline on it because with ankles, they just got to kind of heal. Like there's not really much you can do about it. You can only, do physical therapy so much. Ankles are just kind of one of those things that just needs time. So hopefully it's as quick as possible. So yeah, that's about it. I said I wouldn't go for 30 minutes, and here we are at 32. I'm gonna call it a night. Sacramento Kings lose in what was probably again the worst game of the year, and probably the worst game of the Mike Brown era, and probably the worst of the Beam Team era as well. No Beam lit tonight. Kings lose 97-122 to the Houston Rockets. They head home to play the Portland Trailblazers at Golden One Center on Wednesday, Twin Day, as I believe they called it on the NBC broadcast. Keegan Murray goes against his brother, Chris Murray, on Wednesday. Cannot wait for that. I will see y'all after that game on Wednesday. You can also check me out every single weekday, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Right here on Sactown Sports 1140 YouTube channel and on the airwaves 1140 a.m. On Styles and Watkins. See y'all tomorrow, or I'll see y'all after the game on Wednesday. Peace. Have a great night.